welcome to Advent. Advent is a season that you'll notice in church, everything changes. And it changes to purple or blue because it's meant to signify a special time when something special is coming. In our case, it's the coming of a king. The people were waiting for a king. They had been praying for a king to come. But it wasn't the kind of king that they were expecting. And what Advent for us is a journey to help us understand this king that's coming. It's a journey that we take with Mary and Joseph to Bethlehem, which is where the miracle takes place. And so we have 4 weeks that we use to get ready for that, to help us understand what's happening. The first week of Advent is a time when we focus on the prophets. The prophets who came before Jesus and told us about the signs that were going to come, that would let us know that the prophet was here. The prophets lived a long time before Jesus, and they spoke to the Israelites at really difficult times in their history when they were in exile and when they were looking for their own way home. So in that first week, we think of the prophets and all of the stories that they told us. The second week of Advent, we focus on Mary and Joseph and the journey that they had to take themselves on the road to get them to Bethlehem. They were poor people. Poor people used donkeys to transport them. Mary was pregnant. That's not a comfortable time to be traveling on a donkey, but they had to go. The Roman government told them that they needed to go back to the city. They had to leave Nazareth, where they lived, and go back to Bethlehem, which was the main town where Joseph's family was from, to register for the census. We think of them and how difficult that journey was for them to get there. When you look at it on a map today, it doesn't look very far, but it's actually a really, really long way to have to walk. The third week of Advent, we focus on the shepherds. Like Mary and Joseph, shepherds were poor people. They often didn't own the sheep that they were taking care of. They sat out there all night in the cold. But when the angel came down to tell everyone that the king was coming, the angel came to the shepherds first, came to the poor people first, to remind us that the king came for everyone, not just the rich and powerful people, but for the poor people, the people who needed him the most, the people who were waiting for him. That third week of Advent, we light a pink candle. And that's a little sign just to us to know that we're getting closer. We're almost there. It's a time to be happy because we're getting closer. The fourth week of Advent, the last Sunday before Christmas, is a time when we focus on the 3 kings, the Maji. And they came a long way as well. They came from 3 different parts of the earth. They crossed the desert on camels. These men were wealthy. They were educated. They had been studying the stars and the planets and knew that something was going on. Something was going to happen. And they wanted to be there to see it. They knew all of these stories that the prophets had told, but they knew all of this other scientific stuff as well, and they put the 2 together and said, we need to go there. We need to follow this star that's not really supposed to be there, and see what's going on in Bethlehem. They had a lot of faith, and they came from different places. All of these stories that we've talked about weren't really their traditions. They were from other parts of the world, but they knew that something special was going on. And then, we finally reach Bethlehem. on Christmas Day, when everything in church changes again, it goes to white because it's a very, very special day. There are a couple of days, a couple of times in church every year where everything turns white, and Christmas is one of them because it's so special. And that day is when we know that we finally made it to Bethlehem. Because what happened? The baby Jesus had been born. He had been born in a manger. He didn't have a fancy nursery or a crib. They were in a barn because it was the only place they could find to stay. And in the morning, when the animals came to eat, there was a baby laying in the trough where their food would be, where their hay would be, because it was the only warm, safe place for him to stay. So we think of the animals, the first people that saw the baby Jesus. Before the shepherds made it there, before the kings made it there, they were just animals in the barn with Mary and Joseph.